I was listening to the story about, it was a story of a family in Washington, and the little boy called the Bigfoot the cowboy man. And he had, apparently, it had made an effort to steal this kid. And it hit me. My children were in that playpen behind me with nothing but a mosquito net over them. It could have crept up behind me and taken both of my children, and I wouldn't have known.
His father just got like a Mustang or something from Wyoming, okay? He had it out in the corral because he couldn't put it in the barn in the stalls with the other horses because it would kick and made all the other horses nervous. Had a Seminole Indian working the horse trying to break it every day. So they had it out in the corral. This skunk ape snuck up behind this horse and grabbed it on its hind quarters. This particular horse kicks out, jumps over the corral, runs into the pasture, to get away. At this point, the rancher's out there just blasted away with the dirty. Skunk ape runs into the swamp.
I went up there one day after that, or 2 days after that. I went up there and sat in the silence up there, and I'm telling you, man, it was free. It was crazy. There was a crazy vibe up there still. I did what I could to kind of get things under control, but I told her, I said, you need to get off this property. I feel like no matter how strong you are, it's almost like standing in the ocean. You can't stand still without moving your feet. You're going to get knocked over eventually, no matter how strong, whatever. You can't withstand a barrage of weird spiritual energy.
What is up, everybody? Hope everyone is doing well out there tonight. Welcome back to Paranormal Odyssey. I am your host, Wayne, and I am joined, as always, by my partner in crime, the lovely and talented Tiffany. What's up, ma'am?
Not the temperature. So it's really cold.
You're right. You're right about that.
So cold.
How much snow did y'all get?
Too much. A flake is too much for me. But we don't have a grass, and our driveway is a skating rink, and the backyard's a skating rink, and everything is just ice.
Well, what really sucks is, and I mean, it sucks to some and not to others, but I didn't get any down here. And I enjoy snow. I really do. I'm a big kid. And I think the reason I enjoy it is because we don't get a whole lot of it down here in Southeast Tennessee. Alex got 8 inches. He sent me some pictures. It was crazy, the pictures he sent. I was talking to Nance from Buckeye Bigfoot just last night, and I was trying to see if I could find it real quick. The amount of snow that she got in Ohio was crazy.
Oh, it's wild in Ohio.
It was like, double-digit inches.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But maybe there is some hope for us because we are here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We are calling for around 4 to 8 inches on Friday. So maybe we'll get a little bit of snow, and me and Scarlett can go out there and build a snowman and throw snowballs at each other.
You can take Ruby for a spin and the snow break her in, right?
Hell yeah. Me and Ruby need to get out there.
I thought about you when all the snow started, like big flakes just chunking from the sky. I'm like, man, he would have a ball in Ruby.
Ruby got a new pair of shoes for Christmas too, so she's rolling on 35s now.
Yep. It's time to break them in.
Yeah. All right. What's going on with Red?
Red, he is very comfortable now. He's been here for 8 days today. So he's 1.5 years old. Y'all saw him. He's like massively large, but he's still a puppy mindset. So, but he's comfortable. So he's acting quite puppy.
What does he weigh, Tiffany? Do y'all know?
I don't know. Now, when I did the research on red-bone coonhounds, they can get up to 27 inches at their withers. So that's their shoulder blade to their foot. Mm-hmm. And they're supposed to only get to 70 pounds. And I got to tell you, when he steps on you when you're sitting on the couch and he wants his attention, he feels like he weighs every bit of that. But he's only a year and a half old, so I'm sure it's not quite that drastic yet. But he's
Yeah,
he's
I think
heavy.
it's funny to hear you talk about how massively large he is. And I raised Great Danes for a while, and 35 inches at the withers and 200 pounds is big for them. And that's kind of what I was used to. So, yeah, that's massively large.
Yeah. He's not quite that big, thank goodness.
All right. Well, I'm glad he is fitting in and everyone is doing well.
And I'm so excited, Wayne. You know, when you get a new dog and you're trying to introduce him to the crate, and you don't want him to be afraid of the crate. I've slept on the sofa for 8 days. And I get to sleep in the bed tonight. And I am so excited.
Why is he getting used to the crate?
Well, we put his crate in Carrie's room.
Ah.
So she'll have both dogs in there with her, and Mommy will be asleep in the bed.
Good deal.
Yes, I'm so excited.
I'm glad you don't have to sleep on a couch tonight.
Yeah, me too.
All right, we got a very interesting guest backstage that we're going to get to here in just a minute. We'll let Tiffany tell you all about him. But before we do, we got some bills to pay. So, if you are new to the channel tonight, please, please, please do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Help Miss Tiffany and I continue to grow the show.
And if you would like to be on with Wayne and I, you can reach out to both of us, Wayne at paranormalworldproductions.com or me, Tiffany at paranormalworldproductions.com. We are completely booked through January. We have the first Tuesday booked for February. So if you want anything in February, let us know.
Miss Tiffany has been kicking names and taking ass when it comes to booking guests.
That's right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Of course.
ParanormalWorldProductions.com is our website. You can get a look at all of the podcasts under the studio's umbrella. You can pick you up some merch, sign up for the Bigfoot newsletter, check out the other shows, Sasquatch Odyssey, that Bigfoot podcast. I hear that's a pretty good show, as well as this one. And several others. But you can't do any of that unless you head over to paranormalworldproductions.com.
And if you have questions for tonight's guest, which I know you guys will, you're always great at asking questions. And as you saw in the chat, Troy is out of town. Yeah, they had a death in the family, so he's traveling in Mississippi. You guys have got to, because Troy is on it with these questions. You guys know what I'm talking about. So we need to just put them in all capital letters. We do a rapid fire Q&A at the end of the show, and I will highlight them throughout the show. They're in capital letters.
Right. Yeah. Before I move on, I do want to say you did touch on it with Troy. Him not being here tonight. That might be the first show he's ever missed. Troy's awesome. He did have a death in the family. His wife's aunt passed away, so they are traveling. So please keep those guys, that family, in your prayers. We've had too many deaths in the PO family.
It's been a lot
in the last 6 months. Let's stop, guys. Calm down. Appreciate your loved ones. Take care of your loved ones. If you love them, tell them so. Call your mama if you can. Call your daddy if you can. Your grandparents. Let's hang on to people and show them that we do care. But yeah, Troy probably won't be here tonight. So we love you, buddy. And you are in our prayers. Real quick, manimalresearch.org. Miss Chris Blaylock has built that website for us. She's going to be the one that handles it and does all the changes, the updates, and all that stuff. And I cannot thank her enough. She is amazing. Thank you so much. Manimal Research is the organization that I founded in 2019. We signed up a brand new member today, and he is going to be familiar to you guys. Mr. Johnny Tucker.
No way.
Absolutely. I have been after Mr. Tucker for over 2 years to become a member. And the only reason is because he's awesome at what he does. Some of the audio that he's collected over the years is just phenomenal. It's crazy. It's really, really cool. Johnny Tucker, he's passionate. He is so good at what he does. He come and hang out with us this past year at the Smoky Mountain Conference, came and ate dinner with us at the cabin. And Johnny, we love you, buddy. I'm so thrilled to
That's
have
amazing.
to have you as an official member of Manimal Research. So thank you so very much. If anyone out there is interested in doing the same, Johnny lives in North Carolina. I'm in Tennessee. Chris and Goonie, I think they're in Kentucky, or are they in North Tennessee? I think they're in Kentucky.
Yeah.
We got
Kind of
South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, all over, guys. It's this region down here. We are serious about getting out and doing Bigfoot research. We want Manimal to be one of the first people you call when you have something going on to come and investigate. And we've made a lot of strides this year. But again, if you would like to become a member, doesn't matter what state you're in, contact me at Wayne at paranormalworldproductions.com or go to the website manimalresearch.org. You can sign up through there as well. But yeah, please do so if you are interested. Also, through the website, if you are having Sasquatch on your property, like the gentleman we're going to bring out here in a couple minutes. If you're having Sasquatch on your property and you need someone to come out and check it out, please go to manimalresearch.org. All right, and guys, as you see at the bottom, I'm just going to do this real quick. A lot of people don't want to do the super stickers. If you would rather help us out through Venmo or Cash App, you see that at the bottom. We certainly appreciate that. Now, Tiffany, tell us a little bit about Mr. Neil that we have backstage.
Well, I had put a post on one of the Facebook groups, just reaching out saying, hey, we have openings if you want to come on and, talk about things, if you've experienced Bigfoot, because I add in our show and then Brian's show, I was like, we're really looking for the Bigfoot encounters. And Neil sent me an email, which I was so excited because you can usually put these posts out there and you get crickets, right? So when Neil sent me this email, I was like, and he started talking about everything. I'm like, well, okay, yes, I'd love to have you on to talk about everything. And he has a piece of property that he has Bigfoot like coming and interacting, and I am really fascinated with this. I really want to know more about it because it has been a topic that we've talked about on this show. Y'all have talked about it on that Bigfoot podcast. Brian's talked about it on his show, but actually living with the Bigfoot on your property. So he graciously, said, hey, I love talking about our experiences. Yeah, I'll come on and this Tuesday's great. And I'm like, score, let's do it. So I'm glad he came on.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about Bigfoot habituation sites all the time. They are certainly something that I'm very interested in. I would love to have access to a habituation site at one point for our guys to get into and check out. And maybe that'll happen one day. It hasn't happened just yet. But yeah, as we said, we have Mr. Neil backstage, and we're going to go ahead and bring him out. Neil, what's up, buddy?
How's it going? Hey, Wayne. Hey, Tiffany. How y'all doing tonight?
Good. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about this. This is one of the highly talked about topics with the habituation sites and people who interact with them. Just kind of, coming out into the open and saying, hey, this is what I deal with on a day-to-day basis. Let me explain this to you. Because I think as researchers and podcast hosts like us, we hear plenty of encounter stories, but we really want to get into the nitty-gritty.
It's amazing when you're at a cohabitation site because you interact with them so much that tree knocks and different things they do doesn't even count as an interaction because they just do it, you know. But let me start at the beginning and basically tell you a little bit about myself as a kid and then how it happened. So as a kid, I lived in the country. We had like 77 acres, and I was in the woods all the time. We didn't have any kids around for me to play with, so I loved the outdoors. So I would go in the woods, I would sit in the deep bottom, sit up on the hillside, and always watch the animals. And what was amazing is you sit there for a while. When I was 8, 9 years old, the animals make sounds and the other animals know what it is. In a short period of time, I was able to tell from the squirrels what was going on around me with my eyes closed. They make certain calls that means a hawk or an owl's there, a cat or a dog. I can tell a difference. A deer, when they're chasing one, you know, a female, trying to chase them around. It's amazing because that's just the squirrels. You can tell what's going on just by listening to them. Now, my nemesis was the crows because they can also see in color and have binocular vision. They always made you wear orange. They would circle you with 4, and as soon as they'd see that orange, the whole woods, it was over, especially if you're hunting. You may see a little one come by, you may see a doe, but the big ones you're never going to see. And we hunted a long time, and my dad taught me, if you're not going to eat it, don't shoot it. So he taught me that early in life, which will come into play later on in this story. So I was in the woods so much, my mom put a bell in the front yard so she would ring it for me to come home, because she could yell all she wanted. I wouldn't hear it, but that bell would ring through the valleys and stuff. I would hear it and come on home. Now take it back to modern day. My wife was looking for some property, and she knew I wanted some property to live in, to basically to retire in. And she found this property in North Georgia. It had been abandoned for like 8 to 10 years. And we don't really know why, know bits and pieces of it. But when we drove in, it was overgrown. In the front field, it had brush grown up about 8 to 10 foot high. Then you go down a long driveway. You can't see the house from the road. And then way back in the woods, there's a nice house. And I was looking around, and I love animals. I love deer. And I was like, this is a deer haven. There is stuff for them to eat everywhere. I'm driving by honeysuckle, scuppling vines. You got all this browse for them to eat. There's 2 streams on the property. There's an old pond that's dried up. This is going to be a deer haven. And so we get out, we look at the house. The house is real nice. They've redone it. In the backyard, it's grown up too. So then we started spending some time. We took and bush hogged the front field, bush hogged all of it down, bush hog in the back, started making some changes. The road was a dirt road. Well, part of it, the way the water flowed, you'd slide off every time it rained. So I had to pave it so that, you know, we could get that straight. And I always wanted fruit trees. So we planted all kind of fruit trees. We planted apples, yellow delicious, red delicious. We planted pears, 2 different type pear trees. We planted peach trees, 2 different type peach trees. We planted blueberries. We already had some fig trees on it, and there were some pecan trees, and we had also planted some persimmons for the deer. And like all deer, they started eating on the leaves off the edges. So I had to put netting up that was 6 foot tall with T-posts. And I put fabric on the ground to stop the grass from growing so the trees could grow up quicker. So we did a lot of work. And I was always in the woods as a kid. So I learned a lot about what's natural, what's not natural. And I learned a lot about how the animals would talk to themselves and, you know, communicate. So then the other side of one creek, now both creeks were 8 to 12 foot deep banks. It was really eroded on both of the creeks, and they came and met on the property. And I wanted to get to the other side because that's where the pond was. So we started to go down the road to get to the creek, and there are 3 logs. Now remember, the bulldozer cut the road. So it's level going across it with big banks on the side of it where they cut through the banks. There's 3 huge logs down there across the trail. No lie, they are, well, you won't even see it in there how big around they were. They were huge and they were broken off, and there were 3 of them in a row. And I'm like, what the heck is this? Why would anybody do this? Everything's grown up on the other side. Why would anybody break these logs and put on this road like this? Made no sense to me. Finally, I got them moved out of the way. Me and the kids, did all we could do to get them moved to the side so we could pass. Then I had a side-by-side, a Polaris, one of the big Polarises. So we had to run over the brush. So we got trails going like a snake to get to the pond so that we could start refilling it. And it had an old open side barn on it. It used to be farmed on a long time ago. So we got the place kind of set up. Well, one Christmas in 2019, I was always into cryptids. I was always into the Loch Ness Monster, UFOs, you name it, I would watch it. But Bigfoot was one that I was 50-50 that they were real. There was too many eyewitnesses talking about it. There was too many Native Americans talking about it, and they drew the pictures on the cave walls along with other animals. There was just too much what I thought was evidence. And people say, well, it's all for the money, or it's all for people wanting to get famous. I don't know of a single Indian that painted a Bigfoot on the wall so they could get some beef jerky. Exactly. Or for fame or for money. They just didn't do it. They did it to show what animals they were seeing. So I was 50-50, but I thought they were going to be on the West Coast. I thought they were going to be on, California, Oregon, Washington, Canada, Alaska. I thought they were all going to be up there. So for Christmas, my kids bought me a life-size cutout of a Bigfoot painted black. Off of our back porch, I put it off of our back porch at the very edge of the woods so that I could see it from the back porch. I mean, it was life size. It makes me, I'm 6'4", and it makes me look small.
This one right here.
That's it right there. Yeah. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
And somebody just came in and waved at me. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good.
So then 2 hours later, 2 weeks later, my wife is watching a movie and she's watching a horror show, and I don't like horror shows. Every time I see a horror show, it makes me angry. People get scared, I get mad. So I just don't watch them because I don't want to hit a TV and break it I just don't do it. It's just not my thing. So I went to bed. She was watching it with the fireplace on. When it went off, it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. She goes onto the back porch to cool off. Now, this is in January because it's 2 weeks after Christmas when we put this up. To the right on the back porch, she heard a loud whistle, extremely loud whistle. And she had no clue what it was. Now, she had heard people whistling when she was in high school, but this was much louder than that. We had some dogs in the pen outside, and they were going nuts. They were jumping down. We have like a little building that they're in, a shed they're in. We put a back porch on it, but we put the fence around it. But they were jumping up and down, barking, going nuts. Whatever made the sound move 30 to 35 yards to the left. It did it again, but it was just outside of the light and couldn't be seen. Now, how many times have we heard that about these creatures? They're just outside the light. You can't see them. At this time, my wife thought that it was one of the kids playing a trick on her. So she said, y'all quit playing a trick and come on in. But the dogs are still going crazy. Then it goes down another 35 yards, and it's within 5 yards of the dog pen, where they're jumping up and down, barking, snarling, going crazy. She knew then if it was one of the kids, they wouldn't be doing that. But then it went on down to the creek and whistled again. And she knew then it was not the kids, because the kids would not be out there going into the woods next to the creek with no flashlight. They wouldn't do it, none of them. She comes back in the house, checks on the kids. They're all asleep. She comes in there, wakes me up and tells me, come quick, come to the back porch. There's something out there. I go out there and I listen and listen. I don't hear anything. The dogs have settled down. I don't hear anything. So I'm like, okay, she told me what happened and she doesn't lie. Now, I had seen things on the property that did not make sense. It did not match anything any animals could do. What I'm seeing done, something had to have hands to do it. And it was high up. Or it involved throwing things. I saw things that was not done by any animals in the area. Now, in our area, there's no bear. So that was that instance. So I've got all this stuff I'm seeing weird on the property. Also, what was weird is there were no deer really on the property. There were very few deer on the property. And it should have been a deer haven. There should have been deer everywhere. They just wasn't. The streams were crystal clear. I mean, it was there's nothing I could find, no reason I could find why it just didn't have deer and bucks all over it. 2 weeks later, 4:47 in the morning, something hit our house. Our bedroom's got 2 windows in it, one on each side of the bed. It hit right in the middle so hard that we had a mirror that's like 20, 22, 23 pounds. I wake up immediately at everything. She hardly ever wakes up. I wake up and I see the top of that picture coming back to the wall, which means it got hit way up on the wall. Then the bottom comes out and hits the wall, and then it turns sideways. Then she woke up and she said, "What was that?" And I said, "I have no clue what that was." That was all that happened, except the whole house shook. And this is a brick house, solid. It was crazy. So then I started thinking, what in the world could do that? There's 3 things I know that could do it. A jet going really close by and low, but a jet would make you would hear the backwash. First, you would hear the sonic boom, and then you'd hear the backwash. It was not that.
Mm-hmm.
Then the second thing it could be is an earthquake. But the problem with the earthquake is that's like a wave in the ocean underneath your house, because I've been in one. Whatever this was hit high up on the house. Then the other thing I could think of is a tree falling hitting on your house, but there's no bad weather, there's no wind, there's no trees close enough to hit the house. So I had no clue what it was. But I couldn't go to sleep for a while, so I decided I would go get my iPad and check and see if there's anything happen, an explosion or anything in the area that might explain it. Nothing was reported. And I did the county, I did the cities nearby, nothing. There was nothing that was reported. Made no sense. So the next morning I go outside. I look on the ground, and all the grass where it would have been standing was flattened on the ground, every bit of it. On the brick wall, way up high, 9 to 10 feet, all the dirt was gone in a round circle. Now, I could not see handprints, fingerprints. I couldn't see any of that. But I'm like, I'm 6'4" with long arms. I can't reach that high.
Yeah.
So what is hitting the house that high that can knock all the dust off and the grass is all patted down? So then let me go back just a minute. Either that morning or that night, I also just curious with all the stuff I'd seen with it having to have hands, I went onto the iPad and put in the town nearest us and put Bigfoot. There was a BFRO report that came up that was a hidden location, but as they described it, where the roads they're describing in the distance from it is in the area that I'm at. So I'm like, wait a second. They've seen it, they've heard it, they've been growled at, all this stuff, and it matches the location I'm at. So I need to call and find out exactly where that location is. So what I did was, I knew a guy in North Georgia who was an expert. He knows a tremendous, well, there is no true expert, but if there's anybody that should be an expert, this guy should, because he hears stuff all the time. But he had so much knowledge. So I called him to see if he knew somebody in the BFRO. Well, it took 2 or 3 phone calls, but I finally got in contact with him. Then I asked him if he knew anybody in the BFRO. He said he was, or used to be. And I told him the person's name. I said, I need to talk to this person. He said, well, can I ask why? So I kind of went through of what I'd seen on the property and what happened. And he said, well, that person you won't get in contact with because they've quit doing reports and we really don't have her phone number anymore. And so we won't be able to get in contact with her, but can I ask you some questions? I said, sure. He said, so you told me some things that happened on the property. You told me about the whistling. You told me about the house getting hit. He said, do you hunt? I said, when I was growing up, I would hunt, and I don't anymore because my wife calls them by name, or he calls them and says, hey, little deer, how you doing? And they calm down immediately. I said, if I shot one, she's not going to eat it. I'm not going to shoot them if we're not going to eat it. That's what I was taught. And also to draw the deer in, we planted in the front field, we planted clover, winter peas, had supplemental feeding in stump feeders. We had stump feeders in several places. We put in bird feeders on the back. So we had put out all kind of food for animals to draw them because I love animals. Not to hunt them, not to shoot them, but just to draw them. So then he asked me, he goes, well, let me ask you this. You don't hunt them. But you told me, and I told him about there was no deer here at the beginning, but I put all that stuff out. And he goes, okay, so you're feeding the animals. I said, yes, we have food out all the time. And he goes, okay, so you're feeding the animals, but you're not hunting them. I said, right. He said, do you have any fruit trees? I said, yes, I plant all kinds of fruit trees, apples, peaches, pears, persimmons. I said, all kinds of stuff. He said, okay, have you found any fruit missing? I said, it's funny you said that. I said, the apple trees and the pear trees are too young because I got them as little saplings. But we did get some peaches the last 2 years. And every time they're starting to get ripe, and I tell the kids that we're going to pick peaches and make a peach cobbler on Saturday. And usually I see it during the middle of the week when I take the trash out. I said, they're gone on Saturday, every one of them. And I said, we have deer netting around it. We have it 6 foot tall on the netting. I said, we've got fabric on the ground. It's not on the ground. It's just, and some of it's 8 to 10 foot tall. Even if you're a person that had a ladder, you would have to have some kind of a catcher to pull it down. Nobody even sees our house from the road. Nobody in Georgia is going to go taking a few peaches off of a tree and risk getting shot. They're just not going to happen. I said, I have no idea, but they disappear. And it's always when they're about ripe. And we always say we're going to pick it on Saturday, Friday night, they're gone. He said, okay. He goes, well, I kind of have an idea of what's going on. I said, so what do you think it is? He goes, you know what it is. That's why you called me. You have a Bigfoot. I said, okay. So what does this mean? I mean, what does this mean? I've got a Bigfoot. He goes, they are letting you know they are there and they want to cohabitate with you. Now, I knew a little bit from the shows and stuff like that, but I never studied them or researched them or got into them. That blew my mind. I'm like, wait a second. How in the world could somebody know that? How in the world can somebody come up by asking a few questions and tell me they want to cohabitate with me and let me know they're there?
That's a really good question, Neil. I'd ask that same question.
So I asked him. I asked him. I said, how do you know that? And I asked it just that tone because I thought he was bullcrapping. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I knew him, but I didn't know him good enough to know he's going to shoot you straight. He said, well, let me ask you some more questions. I said, okay. He said, have you or your wife ever heard growls on your back porch or in front of your porch or in the woods at night when you're out there? No. Have you ever had something running by your house and hit it 2 or 3 times during 1 or 2 nights a week? No. Have you ever had trees pushed over your road, your driveway? No. Have you ever had limbs or rocks hit your back porch, your house, or your barns or anything where the dogs are? I said, no. He said, if they didn't want you there, that's what they would be doing. They're letting you know that they want to cohabitate with you. They only hit it that one time. And I said, okay, well, I guess they must have thought, because they saw me looking at the stuff real close that made no sense to me, which I'll cover that in just a second. They saw me studying it. And then all of a sudden I put this Bigfoot cutout in the backyard, life-size cutout. I think they thought that I knew that they were there. And they wanted to let us know that they were there and wanted to cohabitate with us because they saw we fed the deer. They saw we fed birds. Rabbits eat the stuff. Raccoons eat the stuff we're putting out. We're feeding all these animals. And by this time we'd had the pond filled up, but we had to restock it. We had just put minnows in it. And so I'm feeding all these animals. So they see we're not hunting. We're feeding all the animals. They can tell by my wife going on the back porch saying, hey, little deer, how you doing? And they just stop and wag their tail because they know she's safe. And all this stuff going on that, hey, maybe we can cohabitate with these people. So anyway.
Real quick, Neil. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay.
It seems like you're giving a whole lot of credit to Bigfoot. Like they can actually understand exactly what you're doing. So, I mean, are these an animal or are they some form of man?
In the beginning, I thought they were just a forest creature like all the others. And I will tell you why I thought that and what I did. I made a mistake that I wish I hadn't done, but we've never had anything bad happen. And, but I'll get into that in a minute. But I thought at that time they were just another animal. That was my thought. That's where I started out. It's just like a raccoon. It's just like a deer. It's just like anything else. Okay. As the thing goes and all the things I've seen, it's changed on the way, massively changed on the way. So then one of the things I saw that made no sense, there was a trail at the back end of the property that was going along the edge of the creek. And this trail was wider than me, taller than me, and everything on the trail was smushed. I mean, it was smashed. The leaves were flattened and every limb and branch was crushed. I was like, what in the world? I've been hunting all my life and I've never seen a trail like this. We don't have elephants in Georgia. So what in the world is making this trail flatten like this? That's made no sense. That's one of the things I saw. Another thing I saw was all those trees blocking that trail on the other side of the creek. That made no sense. Why would somebody put those three things there to block it on an abandoned property? And if you're going to leave it, why are you going to go to all that work? They're snapped off. They're not cut. There's no signs of any instrument doing it. They're broken. And there's three of them in a row going up on the other side. That made no sense to me at all. Another thing that didn't make any sense was in the open-sided barn, the people that used to live here at one point in time made furniture. There was a lot of things in there where they would put plywood on it and stuff on it and cut it. And one thing was in there, and there was sawdust all around it. Well, something happened. Somebody must have lit a cigarette or something. One day I come home and I see smoke. I go out there and the sawdust is on fire. You know, the sawdust, when it gets wet, can smolder for a while, then it'll start. I was like, oh no. So I ran to the house real quick, got two of the kids, got some buckets, because I mean, it's so steep to get to the creek. I had one kid, we had to get down in the creek. One of them was a runner that one would dip the water, the other one to run it to me. And I was pushing this fire underneath this big bench looking thing, table looking thing, to stop it from getting to the roof because it was going way up. Now the roof is probably 12, 14 foot tall, but it was about to catch the whole thing on fire. So I would take a rake and I would push it under. They'd give me the stuff and I would throw it on it. Finally, I just thought there was no way. This place is going to burn down. Let me call the fire department. So called the fire department. They're close to where we were. So anyway, by the time they get there, I really basically have it under control, but I couldn't understand why that table was not letting the fire go through it to the roof. It should have burned through it and been on the roof. Then all of a sudden, as they started breaking it apart, it was a old-timey pool table that had slate in it. The reason it wasn't going through is that slate was stopping it. But one side of the wood was burnt, the other side wasn't, and the legs of those were made out of solid oak and the sideboards were solid oak. So what they did was the firemen threw the heavy pieces, because they still had the embers on it, into the pond so that they couldn't spread again, because those little embers could start the fire over again, which my son and I stayed there for a little bit, and sure enough, it did reignite with something else, but we were able to get it out. Well, after like I said, stocking a pond's a process. You got to put the minnows in first, then 6 months later or so, you put the brim in. 6 months or a year after that, you put the bass in. That way, you're letting things get populated on the minnows. Then the brims, you put them in at, young. And so by the time you put the bass in, the brim were so big that they can't eat them and decimate the population. But minnows lay their eggs on the bottom side of sticks. I don't know if you know that or not, but a lot of people don't. But they lay their eggs on the bottom of sticks. Bass and brim, they'll make a hole in the ground, make a bed, and lay their eggs. So I decided to get those boards out of there that's got the burnt charcoal on one side, and all the charcoal was down in the pond. So I said, let me get that out of there, because I don't want them laying their eggs on it and killing the eggs. So there was about 6 of them. There was one in all 4 corners and one on each side. They all were within about 3 foot of the bank, but it was not close enough that I could get it, because they made it with a bulldozer, and it has the straight sides to it to where you can't reach down there and get it 3 foot off of it. You got to take a little boat and go in there and get it. So we went to take them out, and the very first one, it had leeches all over it, huge leeches. I mean, a bunch of them. So I said, this is going to be a pain. So I had to knock them all off, put it in the boat, and do that to every one of them. We go to the bank, throw it out of the pond. We have a side-by-side trail around it, and then there's a hill where they made the dirt. We threw it up on the hill. We come back the next weekend, all the boards are back in the pond. 4 in the corner, 1 on each side, and the burnt side was down. I'm like, wait a second. The burnt side's the light side. The heavy side's going to be the side that's not burnt. So at the very worst, if you throw 1 in the pond, at the very worst, you got 50-50 chance the burnt side should be up. It made no sense. Went through the same process again, went out there and got them, got the leeches off, threw them out of the pond. The next weekend, they're back in again. I'm like, this is nuts. I said, I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to do it one more time. One more time, got them out, threw them out. Sure enough, the next weekend when we went to feed the fish, they're back in again. I said, bump it. Now, again, this was before they let us know they were there. After they let us know that they were there, it made sense to me. They were putting them back in there because that was a protein source for them. They would walk out in the pond, flip them over, eat the leeches, and then turn them back down the burnt side up. Evidently, there's something in that charcoal burnt side that attracts leeches. And the only fish we had in there was the minnows, and they don't eat the leeches. Now, after I knew leeches were in there, I did, when I got the brim, I got some sunfish because they eat the leeches. So later on, they got rid of them for us, but I was taking their protein source. Not only that, but near the pond, I saw some limbs that were broke that made no sense to me. This again was before they let us know they were there. There were limbs where 4 or 5 would go up. The one in the middle would be twisted and snapped and pointing towards a trail going into the woods, but it was broken, twisted. None of the others around it were broke. And that was the biggest one of the bunch, and it was still green. It was fresh, live limb. Why would that one be broken, twisted, and none of these others broke? There's no storms. It made no sense, because by the way it was twisted, it had, whatever did it had to have hands, and it was twisted off as high as I could reach. So I'm 6'4" with long arms, and it was as high as I could reach is where it was broken at. So whatever broke it had to be taller than me, because I was getting right towards the bottom of the break, and something had to be higher than that. So all that stuff didn't make any sense to me, and I knew something was wrong, but then they let us know that they were there. So then, it's not that I don't trust anybody, okay? It's not that at all. I've always gone by a thing, trust but verify. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to find out, because still to this time, I hadn't seen any prints. I've seen all this evidence of stuff that makes sense, but I've seen no prints. I hadn't seen anything like that. Okay, let me see if I can find a way to prove it. So that trail I was talking about earlier, where it looked like elephants were walking on, I said, that's got to be one of their trails. I said, there's a tree down there that's leaning. I'm going to take 2 headless nails, nail it into the tree, and then I'm going to take some red delicious apples and stick on them and see what happens. But I said, I'm trying to get prints. So let me get a rake. I got the metal rake. I raked off a bunch of the leaves, and underneath it, where it's real soft on the wet leaves and the wet stuff that's deteriorating, I did it around the bottom of that tree to where it's soft enough. If something heavy steps on it, I would see a print. So put 2 apples up there. The next time I go down there, sure enough, there is a outline of a human-shaped footprint, 16 to 16 and a half inches long. I said, I'll be dang. We got a Bigfoot.
Is it this one? Is it that one?
No, no, I didn't have a picture of that one. That is
okay.
That is a different story in itself. That one is much bigger than 16 inches. That one's much bigger than 16 inches. That one's well over 20 inches.
Yeah, well, it looked pretty big with the two of your feet
Oh,
right
it
there.
is. It is big. And my feet are 13 and a half inches long, 5.5 inches wide. If you see how the end of my shoes are and see how big that is, gives you an idea of how massive that footprint is. But there's a big story that goes along with that one. So I'll get to that in just a few minutes if we have enough time. So now I'm putting apples out for them and putting 2 at a time. I'm sitting down there and I'm like, wait, now even a big one's going to want more than that. And I'm sure there's more here than just one. I was like, thinking in my head, I was like, where can I put another apple? And I was looking around. I could not find another place to put an apple. The next time I come down there, there's a fence not right next to the tree. There is a vine coming up out of the ground straight, and then it goes parallel, then up into a tree. There were 4 sticks angled at different directions on each side, 2 on each side, but at different directions, and made like a teepee shape. And it made a cup on top. I said, wow, I can put one right here. So I put a red delicious apple, and what was really weird was all the limbs on the top were the same level. They were snapped off even. And to me, I just thought that they were just died and got broke. So I put the apple on top. It's 3/4 covered. I said, I'm going to see how smart they are, see if they can figure out where this is at. So we come back the next time and it's gone. But there is another one just like it down a little bit further next to the fence. I said, wait a second, I know that wasn't there. So I started looking at it and looking at the limbs, and I noticed the limbs did not come from the trees that are right there. They were different limbs from different trees. And so I pulled one out of the ground, and the limbs had been stuck 3 to 4 inches in the ground and were sharp at the ends, but it snapped off even at the tops on every one of them. The other one had 4 also. They had made 2 places for me to put apples. Now, did they read my mind, or did they see me looking around? Because I can promise you they're always watching, always watching. They pattern better than anybody can pattern. Or did they see me by looking around and say, hey, we want some more apples. He's looking for a place to put them and make them for us. So I didn't know, but it was really weird because I did it in my head, and all of a sudden the very next time one appears. And I'll be honest with you, that first time when I put that apple in there, I thought I was trying to see how smart they were. When I figured out that I put that apple right where they wanted me to, I got a little bit mad for a minute because I was insulted. These things outsmarted me. I was trying to see how smart they were, and I'm the one that put the apple right where they wanted me to put it. That was crazy. So then I was talking to my wife. I was like, people don't know very much about these creatures. Let's see how we can figure out a way to learn about them, learn from them. So the first thing we did is we had a stump feeder down there near that area. Now, it was in a level area, and on the top of the stump feeder, it's flat, but it's got little plastic circles on it. So I said, let's gift them. I'd read or saw a show that they like blue marbles. I said, let's take some blue marbles and put on the top and gift it to them. So I put 9 or 10 blue marbles on the top to gift it to them. This is something we tried after that. When we put those on there, we just put them on the top without being in a plate.
Got you.
So that's the gifting is the first thing we did, which led to this. So what happened is they took the marbles, all gone. And then my wife and I are running around. It makes like a U shape. The way we have the trail, because the way the creek is and the property is, it makes a big U right down there next to where they took the marbles. There is a huge river rock on one side. Then there's another huge river rock on the other side. And my wife goes, where did those come from? Those weren't here before. I said, I don't know. Thank goodness my wife does the mowing. She loves to mow. That's one of her relaxations. So I spent some money to buy her a good zero turn because, you know, I want to make sure she could mow it because it's a big area. But I said, I don't know. Now, I didn't think that that was possibly a gift back. And the reason I didn't think that is because all the stuff I'd kind of looked at, it was like flowers or things tied together or feathers or things like that they gift you back. So I didn't think of that as a gift. All of a sudden, a couple of weeks later, we're coming back from my mom's house. My wife's asleep, and I'm just running through my head. I mean, once it gets into your head's like a computer. It wants to figure out things. And that was one my mind was constantly working on. I'm like, wait a second. That could be a gift from them because marbles are hard. They're pretty, but they're smooth like a river rock. Maybe they did gift that to us. So we got back late Sunday night. I decided to go ahead, jump in the side by side and run down there and inspect them a little bit more. Now, remember, the banks of this creek is 8 to 12 foot tall. The biggest one was about 100-pound rock, river rock. The other one was about 40 to 60 pounds. Imagine carrying that out of the creek, and where that is about 60 yards from the creek. So I run down there, and I don't take the trail. I shoot through the middle, the quickest way there, because I know I'm already going to be late for work. They're gone. Those not there anymore. Where did they go? I mean, what happened to them? A bird's not going to pick up a rock that's 100 pounds or 40 to 60 pounds. What was going on? So I go on up the trail. There's one peach tree they really like to eat from. And there beside it, where my wife had mowed on the Saturday, well, on the last time she mowed, the big one is sitting right next to that peach tree where she had mowed. I said, wait a second. Here's the big one. That's 70 yards from where it was before. That's crazy. Something had to carry that 100-pound river rock up here and put up here. I said, where's the other one? So I started running on around the circle, and I get back around to the other side. And it was so steep that we had to bring in several hundred loads of dirt to make a pad for the kids to park their cars, because there wasn't enough room. The trail was at the bottom of that pad, and that's 8 foot from that trail to the top where they park. On that trail, right beside where they park, that one that was on the other side is on one side, and another one just like it's on the other side of the trail. So they had moved them to make sure we saw their gift back. I said, holy cow, that is a gift. Because first off, how did it get there to begin with? And then we didn't take them, so they moved them to make sure we saw them. I said, we need to accept them. So we took them and we put them by our steps on the back porch. Then I started thinking, okay, so what can we do to interact with them? So I'm past the stage of getting, the gift stuff. What can we do to interact with them so we can get something going on in between us?
Hey, Neil.
Uh-huh.
Let me interrupt you real quick, buddy.
Okay.
It's very obvious that we're going to need a part 2.
Yes, absolutely.
I can tell you that I have over 25 hours of interactions of stories like the rocks and the gifts, and some are even crazier, like that footprint. There's a story there that you won't believe, but there's stories that go with that too.
So if you're open to it, buddy, I hope you are. We would love to have you back for a part 2, even a part 3 if necessary. Because it sounds like you got some crazy shit going on.
It is
on
nuts.
Your property. But, we're already at the hour mark. and we have
Okay.
several questions for you. I want to get to those questions, and then we'll set up another a part 2 and so on. Just
Okay.
to fully tell your story.
Yeah, because this is something that I know you want to share and
Mhm.
we want to
It
experience.
needs to be shared.
Yes.
I'm telling you, there's been so much that happened. I've been on some people's podcasts 5 times, and they want me to come back because it's just that much. Excuse me. But I try to take pictures of what I see so I can show people what I'm seeing. Now, do I do it all the time? No, I'm a dummy like some people. First time we saw a footprint coming out of the pond, it was perfect because the mud had settled in that footprint. It was a perfect picture. Me and my wife were looking at it for 15 minutes. Both of us had a phone and never took a picture of it.
Yeah.
And the next day I take a picture. You can see the hole shaped like a foot, but when the mud was in it, you could see the outline perfectly with the toes and everything. But we'll go ahead and do the questions that people are asking.
Okay, yeah, we'll get to these questions. Tiffany she'll stay in contact with you if you don't mind,
Okay.
ma'am, and
No,
set
not
up
at all.
a part 2 and just however many we need to fully tell your story. But the first question comes from our good buddy, Miss Chris Blaylock. When it took the mirror off, was it on the brick or siding?
When they took the mirror off.
So when your house got slapped and
Uh-huh.
it jolted the mirror, was where they slapped,
Oh,
was
it
it brick?
wasn't a mirror. It was actually a picture on the
Oh,
inside.
picture.
Okay.
When it took the mirror off, read it again.
I already took it off. Was it on the brick or the outside?
No, it was on the inside of the bedroom where it came off the wall because I couldn't see out the windows from where we were. There's a window on my side and a window on hers, but it's outside the bed. What I saw come off the wall was actually a huge picture that was above our bed on the wall that it got hit. And the top came out and I saw it coming back. Then the bottom came out and it went back and then it turned sideways because the hit was so hard. And there were a couple of people come out after that and they saw where it actually hit so hard. My wife's window at the top corner, the bricks broke all the way to the roof. So it hit so hard, it broke the bricks all the way to the roof.
That's what this picture is.
That's what that picture is. Yep. So that's how hard it hit.
All right, we'll move on to the next one. Also, Miss Chris Blaylock. How long did it take you to understand the animal sounds? Good question.
That's hard for me to say because I was in the woods all the time and I was paying attention all along. And I was going in the woods as early as 8 years old. But by 10 years old, I knew what they all meant. Now, I wasn't sitting there studying the sounds, but that last year between 9 and 10, I would just sit back on a stump, lean my back up against a big oak tree and close my eyes and just listen. And then when I would hear something, I would open my eyes and kind of just move. I wouldn't move, but I'd move my eyes to see what's going on. So somewhere, most of that was done between the ages of 9 and 10 years old, learning that. As a matter of fact, if we have time for a short story, I took my wife on a romantic little picnic at a park. The park had an island that there's a walking trail around. So we go there, we're having a nice little romantic picnic. She doesn't know much about me. I don't know much about her, but I'm trying to impress her, All of a sudden, I hear a squirrel on the other side of the island, and I just start laughing. And she said, "What are you laughing about?" I said, "Oh, nothing. Don't worry about it." Well, of course, she's probably thinking I'm laughing at her, A minute or two later, I started laughing again. And she goes, "I want to know what you're laughing at." I said, "Nothing. She goes, "Well, what am I doing? What's going on? You got to tell me what you're laughing about." I said, "You're not going to believe me." I said, "But on the other side of the island, there's a squirrel raising Cain because there's dogs over there and it wants the dogs to leave. She looked at me like I was nuts, crazy. As probably 5 to 10 minutes later, here comes this lady that we had not seen walking. Now, there had been a couple of more cars there, but we never saw any people. A lady came walking and she had 2 Dobermans on the leash. She looked at me and I said, there they are. She goes, you just guessed. I said, I didn't guess. But now she's learned, because we'll go in the woods and I teach her stuff and show her. I will tell her what's going on, then I'll show it to her. So now she knows I actually can do that. So I almost lost my wife before it ever got started, because I was sharing that with her so she wouldn't get mad at me thinking that I'm laughing at her. So,
yeah, that's funny. Mike Wolf, when you talk about the whistle, was it a sharp whistle or what? Any fluctuations or just a single note?
okay, so I didn't hear it, but my wife heard it. And the way she described it, it was a real long whistle, and it started and went a little bit high and then went down just a little bit. And all of them were about the same. It wasn't flat, but it didn't, it started off at one range and then went up a little bit, then came down a little bit. But it was really long and really loud.
Okay.
The way she described it.
All right. Well, as we said, Neil, we obviously need at least a part 2. So if you're open to that, we will set that up. Is that something you do?
Yeah, I'm open to it, but I'm kind of laughing because a part 2, we probably won't even get from when they changed this to a cohabitation site to a nursery.
Okay, well,
Part
we'll make it a
three.
whole series then.
Part
We'll
4,
make it a
part
whole
5.
series then.
I'm telling you, it's crazy. I mean, and they quit hiding their footprints after they trust us, and after they got to where they trust us, and we showed them respect and we set parameters. They quit hiding their footprints on a lot of the stuff they do. So that's how I've seen so much, and I've even asked them to show me some of their stuff they do, and they have. So we won't get into that stuff yet.
Yeah, and this is the stuff that needs to come out, because we always hear people who always say, well, you know what, I live on a Bigfoot habitation. However, they're not willing to share any information. They don't want to, like you sent me bukus and pictures. They don't want to share pictures. They don't want to share encounters. And it makes it so hard to believe people like that. So when you came at me in the email and you're like, hey, here's all these pictures and, this is some of the stuff. And I'm like,
I've got hundreds of pictures, but that was just a few, because I was trying to relate some to stories that we had, because almost all those pictures, there's a story that goes along with it.
Right.
So, yeah, and I understand, because you got relatives that have lived there, on some of them forever, and they they tell them, be quiet, don't ever tell anybody, so they don't. You got people that ridicule people. You got people who tell their best friends that they are not their friend anymore.
Right.
There's a ton of reasons why they don't. And then sometimes when people come out, they start getting blasted.
Right.
I'm just different, because a lot of those things doesn't apply to me. I don't care what people think of me. I know I'm telling the truth. My wife knows I'm telling the truth. That's all that matters to me. I've got people that say there's no way you can see that much. I can see prints every time I go out. That's no big deal. But you tell people that, and you got people that are researchers, and if they find 4 or 5 good prints in a year, they've had a great year. But then when I tell them I can see 3 to 4 every time I go out, they automatically you're lying. But a lot of the parameters that they have for them don't apply to me, because we didn't have family here. This place was abandoned. I don't care if they believe me or not. I know we're telling the truth, and I'm doing it not for money. we actually had made a store where we were selling shirts and stuff to try to offset some of the cost of some of the things you'll find out we're doing later on, because it's really expensive. And then people started saying that you're just doing it for the money. We took it down. Mm-hmm. We weren't doing it for the money. I don't want people to think I'm doing it for the money, and it's not the thing. I'm doing it because it's a unique situation that if enough people would get together, you can learn about their patterns. You can learn about their habits. Now, I'm not unrealistic. I know that what I'm seeing here is just a snapshot of here. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the stuff I'm seeing here, I've talked to other people that have been at cohabitation sites in other areas, and a lot of the stuff they're doing is the same. So, but that's what needs to happen if you're going to figure it out. And that's why we do it. That's why I'm trying to get as many people to this conference in March, because we're going to answer their questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one right here.
And there it is. We will share it. We'll share that link in the show notes for when the episode comes out. It's a podcast. Okay. But yeah, again, Neil, we're going to need you back, buddy. We have so much more to get into, but I do want to thank you for your time tonight, coming to hang out with us tonight. It was awesome, buddy. Thank you so much.
Not a problem.
Yes, thank you for trusting us. Because until people start trusting, I mean, and that's what we talked about on the Facebook group page, right. You and I. There has to start being something more. You know what I mean? Right. So I appreciate you coming on and starting the journey of something more.
Well, you're welcome. And like I said, I don't care what people think of me. I will answer questions outright. The next episode, I will tell you I have a very strict thing as far as seeing them. What I call a sighting is different than what most people do. And before I say something definitely can do it, I have to see it done 9 to 10 times. Now, I've seen some strange stuff that is considered to be in the woo category. Mm-hmm. But I've not seen it 9 times, so I'm not going to say they can definitely do it.
Yeah.
But I've seen some weird stuff, but I asked them to show this stuff. So I guess you take it as you get it. You know, if you ask for it and you get it, some of the stuff, then there's some stuff that they do that most people don't even talk about.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
All right, buddy. Yeah, we'll let you go. We're not going to take up any more of your time. Again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. And Miss Tiffany will be in contact to set up part 2.
All right. Sounds good.
Enjoy your evening, buddy.
Well, y'all have a good night.
You too.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye. So awesome.
That was certainly interesting.
I can't wait to hear the more.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much more that we obviously need to get into before anyone can draw any kind of conclusion of what's going on. But it sounds, I mean, it's compelling.
Oh, 100%. I mean,
the things that he's going through.
Yep. Footprints, gifts, rocks, the whole everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
We hear these all, you know. It was really cool. I'm excited to hear more.
We will definitely get him back on for at least probably a couple more episodes.
Yeah, I would say a couple more for sure.
All right. To everyone out there in our audience, thank you so much for being respectful, for asking good questions. All of the super stickers and Venmo and all that stuff. We thank you so very much for that. You got anything else, ma'am, before we get out of here?
I don't. Just come back this Saturday. We're going to have Mr. Ryan Tremblay back. And we're going to dig into Bigfoot and Dogman.
Yes, we are.
Because I am excited to hear about that.
Should be a very good time. All right, guys. Until we talk to y'all then, y'all take care of yourselves. Take care of each other.